So I think the idea behind this session was to, I think, provide a monthly update on, what we've built, how to use it, what does it do, and how does this align with the use cases. We kind of keep this a regular monthly conversation as we go through the project. So I'm planning, I think, to keep this like a 15-minute session. So I'm really going to focus on the use cases as we heard it, how we've built tools to, I guess, to explore those use cases, and then allow plenty of time for Q&A. So I don't want to go into exhaustive detail on how the tool works, but just give you enough of an idea that any burning questions you can ask around that, and we can do a deep dive. So without further ado, let me share my. Okay, thank you. So so this is React.energy. Yeah, I'm not going to go into kind of login stuff, but this is basically the website. If there's questions about login, we can take this later. But this is the live app. So on the screen there, so let me just talk through the use cases briefly that we delivered through release 1. So the first one was consolidated information, so multiple layers showing current networks. Second use case was a single view of the development capacity pipeline, tracking against CP30. The third one was the location and the visualization of the data on a map and showing all connections. The fourth one was updated daily and understanding the customers. And then the fifth one that came through was the ability to understand the clustering of battery projects, particularly around GSPs. So by default, so if you load up the map for the first time, what you'll see is that everything's bounded onshore by the SSEN license area, and then we've extended this offshore to the extent of Scottish waters or British waters in Scotland. And what this is meant to be is a consolidated view of all the data that we have access to on the network, on the schemes that are either connected to or looking to connect to the network, and the substations. So ways that we can now interact with this. So by default, you can move in, you can zoom in, you can move things around, move it sideways. In terms of the styling, we've made an effort here to distinguish between what's a generation scheme and what's a storage scheme. So generation we've styled as blue, and if it's an installed generator, so it's dark blue. If it's planned but not yet installed, it's this light blue. So we try to make that distinction. And then for the storage schemes, we've styled these as orange. So yeah, so light orange blobs are planned storage, and if you've got installed storage, it'll be a darker blob, darker orange blob. So what this allows you to do by default is to just just see visually, I guess, how things are clustered. The size of the capacity we've tried to represent with these kind of circles, these centroids. So the greater the number of megawatts, the bigger the dot. So you'll see that a lot of these are very small. These are kind of embedded hydro or whatever, quite small. But then you see that in the future, some of these are very big. On the circuits, yellow is all overhead lines. If it's buried or subsea, we've styled it as a kind of a darker orange color. So again, just trying to make that distinction between what's overhead and what would be buried or subsea. And we've styled the circuits according to voltage as well. So higher voltage is a thicker line. So for now, we've kept all the voltages the same color. Yeah, I guess deliberately for now. But the very faint lines tend to be distribution level. So what this allows you to see is, how the substations and the circuits are all connected, so both installed and future. I guess the other thing I'd say on the circuits is that A dashed line is a planned circuit, and an infrastructure that's in the really early phase, as opposed to being, you know, planned but quite mature. So if it's really early phase, we've shown this kind of 1 kilometer corridor just to signify that maybe the route's not fully landed yet. So that's just looking at the data, I guess. Other things we've built in, so we've got the table view where this responds to filters that we've built in. So if I bring up some of the filters, yeah, so these filters, so these are able to respond to things like connection status. So if you're, you know, if somebody's interested in, okay, show me what's accepted to connect and application submitted, for example, then the visual map responds to the filter, and the table below it also responds to the same thing. And you can download everything in the table with this. So just download the CSV. You can click on the button. We've also got a totalizer option here, where again we've tried to split this into the generation pipeline and the storage pipeline. So as you change these filters, this totalizer changes. It just gives you a view of how many plants that includes, what's the total capacity. So if I put these all back on, for example, yeah, you'll see it's a big number. And then we've also got other types of filters here, such as, you know, if you're interested in, well, what's everything above 30 megawatts, for example. So you can change the capacity slider, and again the totalizer changes, the table below changes. This table, each of the columns is sortable per column, and there's also a neat feature here where it's like a flexible search option. So if you're looking for a specific scheme, or even schemes that are attached to a certain area, for example, so you could type Webster, and it'll bring up, you know, everything that's connected with that keyword. So this is quite a useful, flexible way to search for things like this. So yeah, so that aligns with, I think, being able to understand the pipeline in a flexible way. And we can change these filters quite easily. So I guess one of the things I've realized, so we've got a filter here for the connection system status. We don't have one for the planning status, so it's quite easy for us to build this in and filter according to either planning status or connection status. So yeah, you can filter according to developer as well. So show me those schemes that are owned by a certain developer, for example, or owner. The other thing we have here is a time slider. So I think one of the requests in the original workshop was being able to see a current view. So what's all the stuff that's there now? What's all the stuff that's planned, maybe not there now? And how do we look at this stuff in a flexible way? So let me just reset the filter. Yeah, so the options for the timer slider here. So by default, this shows both, but you can set to view here where it shows only everything that's installed or current at that time. So as of 2025, this should show you everything that's installed. If you move that, for example, to 2030, then that should give you a view of, according to the information we've got, this is what would be installed by 2030. And then you do the same for 2040. And conversely, you can see, well, at the moment, 2025, what's planned but not yet installed. There's obviously a lot of stuff in there. And then as you move to the future, these kind of diminish as things get installed. But the default view is to look at both together, so both current and future. But again, it's a flexible way to be able to look at these things. I'm just looking at the time for now. I could probably go on, but it's probably useful to, I think, take questions from anybody that's online. So if you want to deep dive into any specific piece of geography or use case, I'd be happy to take questions. Maybe before I do that, I guess the other thing I didn't show was the ability to look at kind of clustering of batteries around GSPs. So the way that we've styled the connector, so this kind of plug socket icon, this is a transmission substation. The one that looks like a tower, this is a GSP type. And as you zoom in, we've got these 5 kilometer kind of radius buffers that pop up. So you can see here, you know, there's a number of batteries that are clustered within that GSP. We are building tools to automate that clustering, so things like heat maps and a type of clustering that as you zoom out, it tells you how many schemes and the total capacity, but then we've not been able to deploy them yet, so that'll be coming in the coming days. But with these, you can click on each of the schemes, you can see what they are. Yeah, so some of these kind of overlap. Sometimes we've got multiple projects kind of on top of here just because the planning information gives the same location. So yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions on this and do a deep dive into any specific area.
I had one, I think just a quick question. Is it the schemes showing in red, are they cancelled?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, you're
Not
right.
progressing schemes. Okay.
Yeah, I've not mentioned that. So we've also shown separately, particularly wind farms that have maybe gone through planning and they've been rejected or withdrawn. So we've kind of shown them for now. By default, I want to set these to be not showing. We've not done that yet. So, but I think in terms of analyzing maybe what's working and what hasn't worked and what's failed, yes, useful data to have. But yeah, I do want to be hiding them by default. But you're right. So these are all things that have, yeah, been withdrawn or failed.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe one other thing I'd mention then. So I think since the last time we showed it to people, we've now got turbine information as well. So as you zoom in, we've got the exact locations of either turbines that are installed or turbines that are in planning, and then we've got data for a lot of these as well. Okay, that's for the wind farm. If I go to next, yeah, this is for the individual turbine. So some of these we've actually got information on blade radius, model number, you know, output of individual turbines. I don't think we've got information on heights yet. But I think some of the things we've heard is, you know, things like turbine heights for certain locations are quite important. So maybe we'll look at that more in the future. Yeah, now I've got some information. Maybe one other thing I might mention as well. So in the data table, that kind of aggregates all the information about these. Towards the end, so we've got some calculated variables related to the wind farm acreage. So we understand this is one of the connections reform gate 2 criteria. So because MapStand have been able to extract, you know, fairly accurate geometries from local planning authority planning systems, we've got both yeah, we've got both the kilometers squared and the megawatts. So what we've done, so we've got a metric here which is wind farm acreage, acres per megawatt. I think NISO have the criteria of 7.6 or 7.7. So if the number's above that, then you'd probably consider that to be a pass. If it's lower than that number, then it may fail the gate 2. So it's just an example of how how through the app we can just automate some of these calculations and represent this more visually. So we'll be looking at this a lot more over the next month or two. It just shows that yeah, we've got some of this. And some of these are fails. So here's one, 3.7 acres per megawatt. That would be below NESO's threshold. Maybe the other thing I'd mention as well. So I'd imagine that most of the users would be using this on the work laptop or desktop. It's been optimized. It also works on tablets, on phones as well. Can't imagine many people using it on a phone, but it is actually optimized to use. So I think we've tried to make it as accessible as we can. So any operating system, any browser, any screen format, it should work. So you can use it with touch screens quite nicely. In terms of I guess in terms of future use cases and what we're working on at the moment, we've finished release 1, basically the end of April. We're now working on release 2. So this is the next set of features that we're going to be working on May, June, July, so up to the end of July. And there's 3 areas that we're going to be focusing on quite hard. So it's really taking the tool as it is, from just looking at data, so looking at dots and lines and polygons, towards things that are more insightful for having good conversations about development planning. So the first one is geographic analysis. So this is being able to do analysis of clustering and pipelines according to different bits of geography. So whether that's pricing zones or flop zones or transmission boundaries or local planning authorities, we'll be doing this starting next week. The other one is being able to analyze or being able to visualize future transmission projects in a kind of a more obvious way. So linking together schemes and future projects, and then I guess doing scenarios where if certain projects don't happen, what might that do to the capacity that's linked to a transmission project. And then the other one is starting to look at success and risk criteria to particularly onshore wind and batteries as well. I guess a lot of this work's been done before, maybe. We're probably looking to do it in a deeper way, and then bring these things together very visually. Johanna, is there anything else that you wanted to maybe cover or dive into before we finish?
No, nothing to add. I thought that was a really good overview of everything, and it's come a really long way already in just the last few months. So it's almost a complete transformation. Yeah. No, nothing else from me. But yeah, if anyone else has any input on kind of other attributes of data that they would find interesting in this, or other layers that would help with analysis or questions you have around this type of data set, or how to communicate it to stakeholders, yeah, anything like that, we're really keen to hear, because obviously it's in development and looking to adapt the development as much as possible to individual use cases. So yeah, but no, thank you, Tony. I think it looks great.
Yeah, it is in development. I mean, we're only 4 months in, so we want to take this in a direction that's really useful to how people do the jobs. So I think where there's maybe a gap with current tools, how could we add value to the way that people currently work? Yeah, question there from Thomas. Go ahead.
Still on mute. Hi, thanks, Tony. No, it's really good. I've not been that close to this. I've been aware of it in the background. I work in the investment planning team, who also look after our power factory models. So it's probably trying to create those linkages in my head. I guess that there's a lot of data in here. Do we know kind of, I guess, how this sits in business as usual. Who has that kind of ownership and responsibility for maintaining and managing the data inputs and processing going forward?
Is that a question for Johanna, maybe? This is more a business question, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to give that one a go, Thomas. So it's an innovation project at the moment. So I don't know how far we are in that question of business as usual and data ownership. But it's definitely something we're starting to think of quite a lot already, because yeah, kind of the whole data sign-off process, making sure we're not duplicating data with other teams. I don't think we have the full answer to that yet, but it's something we're looking to establish over the next few months as well, with conversations to get the right kind of flow and sign-off and kind of quality of this data in place as well for internal use cases. But at the moment, yeah, kind of doesn't quite sit in that business as usual space yet. So.
No, that's cool. Thanks, Johanna. I know it's good to know. And yeah, I think it's almost kind of, you want to sustain this effort and kind of the ability to kind of visually see something like this. So it's trying to, yeah, see how that sits in the business going forward. I think there's other discussions that might feed into that as well, in terms of asset management, ratings, etc., across Maximo, and some of the stuff that maybe is just unique to Power Factory. How much do you kind of start paralleling that up, or is it similar systems that can support all of them? So you do it once, but happy to support that conversation. But this, yeah, it looks really good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It would be great to have your input on a lot of those questions. So I'm sure we'll be in contact with questions. Thank you, Thomas.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I had a similar question to Thomas there about the data pipelines and everything going in. So yeah, Hannah, we can certainly chat. Yeah,
definitely very happy to have those conversations. And yeah, at the moment, it is public data feeding this full visual. So see how we align that with internal IDs and keys and refresh rates and all that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think at the moment, Francis sends apologies, by the way. He was going to make it, but the train he was on got delayed, so he's not able to call in. So MapStand are aggregating, you know, all sorts of public data sets, but it is only that stuff that's in the public domain. So it's information that comes from NISO, stuff from the Rapid database, which isn't very good. It's stuff from the individual local authority planning portals, you know, including all the geometries. But in terms, so I guess one of the comments that's been made is, you know, if we're taking information from the tech register, it's already a number of months out of sync, if you like, with that stuff that originates from the transmission owner. So, you know, I think what we're doing is about demonstrating you know, a principle or a, you know, techniques for making sense of data. But yeah, you know, I think those conversations about what data may you get in the future and how do you connect with that is yeah, I think something we'd be interested to understand as well.
Hi, yeah, it's Sue Fowley here from partially from network development, which sits in the pre-Gate Zero world. So certainly, yes, Johanna and I have started some conversations off about yeah, how we would be able to think about that data that is the proposed layer, basically, and things that might happen, but aren't quite there yet. Certainly in terms of moving across into NISO's tech register. So yeah, it sort of follows on from your comments there, Thomas, about how would that sit in business as usual, and you know, which data sets can we publish and share, because yeah, obviously some of it's you know, fairly confidential in terms of what's happening with conversations with the developers at that point. And yeah, we were also keen as well, Johanna and I spoke about making sure that there isn't duplication of effort and how we can combine our efforts successfully. So yeah, that was just what I wanted to add in.
Great, thanks, Sue. Yeah, so yeah, we'd encourage everybody to anybody that wants to access the tool that doesn't currently know how to, yeah, please talk to Johanna and Jonathan. They can assign access. Anybody's got suggestions for, you know, what doesn't work, or there's bugs, or what should be added, again, you know, please pass them on. So we can modify and fix these things pretty quickly, but you know, it's good for it to be driven by the business. Okay, well, that's 1:30, I guess. Johanna and Jonathan, is there anything else you wanted to say at the moment about, I guess, engagement or general? I've given a bit of a demo. You know, I'm happy to do any more deep dives or further demos as is required, but we'll make this a regular thing. We'll do it monthly.
No, I think nothing. Yeah, thanks for taking us through that, Tony, and appreciate that. Yeah, just you picked up on it anyway. We're gonna make this a regular thing so that we can bring people along the journey, and then they can have the opportunity to ask questions and input.
Brilliant, thanks. Okay, thanks all for joining. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.